Welcome to this video over installing Locust and getting it to work with VSCode. I'm going to start off by downloading Visual Studio Code. So I've gone to code.visualstudio.com. Could click this button, but that's just for the user installer. I kind of wanted the system installer so I can install it for everyone. So I'm going to go with the system installer 64-bit version. Let that download. Open where it's at, double click it. Accept the license. Next. I'm going to create a desktop icon, and I want to have the open with code things on my Windows Explorer, so I like that. And then I'll click next and install. And it is done installing, so let's press finish. And it launches VSCode. So far so good. And I'll just verify that it's got my little favorite option of being able to right click. I can now right click and click open with VSCode, which is what I like. Alright, that's good to go. Okay, I'm now going over to python.org in order to download Python. Locust is a Python module, and so I need Python. So let's look at the Windows download. I'm just going to download the latest, which is 3.85 right now. And I'll just scroll down to the bottom here and look at the files that are available. And so I'm going to choose the x86 64-bit web installer. Download that. So we've got, click that. And I want Python added to my path, so I'm going to click that checkbox. I'm going to do the custom one, so documentation, pip. Okay. So I can click install for all users. And I can now determine where I want Python. I'm going to put Python at kind of the root there. And let it install. So it's taking a few minutes to pre-compile everything as it installs. Okay, it has finished up. I can disable the path length limit. For this demo, I'm not going to do that. So close. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do here is run a command prompt. And don't run, if you had a window open before this ran, you need to close it, because it's updated the path whenever the installer was running. So I had that problem a little bit earlier. And so it does say that it does have Python version 3.85. Awesome. Next, we're going to go and install Locust. After we first check on our pip version, so I'm going to just type pip and then -- version. So that's 20.1.1. So we can use pip in order to actually install Locust. So I'll do pip install Locust and hit return. Now I will check to see what the Locust version is. And it is 1.2.2. Okay, we're going to make sure that everything is running. And so what I'm going to do is just create a folder here real quick. And just call it Locust stuff. And I'm going to dive in here and create a new text file. which I'm going to call my script.py. And actually, I think that's got a double extension. Let me turn something on here for just a second. Options. Extension of known types. Yeah, it's got a double extension on it. Yes, I'm sure. Let's open this with, let me send this to Notepad. Okay, and then let's kind of paste in this script here that I've got. File, save. And then just change to that directory. So I'm going to do locust.f for file, myscript.py. And what this is going to do is ask me if Python can access a network. I'm going to allow it to. And what it's telling me now is that it has opened up a web interface at localhost 8089. So if I come back up here and go to localhost 8089, I see that I have the Locust front end. So let me bring this back up here. And so I'm going to say one user and the spawn rate is 1. I'm going to hit start. I should be able to see that I'm getting requests coming in. 2 requests have gone out to this website, which is the Brewer website. Okay, and it looks like that is running. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop this. Control C. Drops out a bunch of stats whenever it comes out. All right, so the next thing we want to do is try to run this over in VSCode and see what we get. So let's go over to the local stuff folder. Right click it, open with code. What I need to do now is I need to install some extensions. So let's go for the Python extension first. I'm going to get the Python extension from Microsoft. I'll install it. Okay, that's installed. Let's see what files it actually sees. Whenever I come in here, it sees that it's asking me about a linter, if I want to install a linter or not. So I'm just going to tell it to not show that again. So the next thing I need to do is set this thing up so that Python file, yes. So what I did was come in the debugger, and then it was actually asking me if I wanted to create a launch JSON file, and basically I did. As you can see, the default launch JSON file that they set up here is for Python. We're going to slightly modify it. So I'm just going to change the name to Locust. The type is still Python. I still want to launch. The module, though, is I'm going to actually specify a module rather than the program here. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to take that out. So it should look like this with the name is Locust, the type is Python, the request is launch, the module is the Locust module with arguments -f for the file itself, meaning it's going to be this is just arguments that you're feeding into it. And I also need to specify one more thing down here. I need to specify gEvent. So I'll specify that and then leave the rest the same. I'll do a save on this. And then for my Python script itself, I need to add a statement down at the bottom in order for it to kick it off and make it run. So I'll do save on that. And then now if I actually put something here for debugging it, should be able to hit the debugger like that. And you can see that it's going to start up in the bottom of the terminal. So it actually did kind of what we did at the prompt, where it's specifying the file itself. So -F for file. So the web front end is now up. So if I do a refresh, so let me refresh this, it's now started again. So I can press 1 and 1, and then you can see I'm already being prompted because it's actually hitting this breakpoint. So if I hit return, it's going to do it between maybe 5 to 9 seconds. That's what the timing actually states. It's good to go. So I'm going to stop this real quick, and which stops the front end. And let's add a variable in here. So let's call it result, just so we can see a few more things. What we're going to do is print result of the call. I want to see the text, and I also want result dot. I want the status code back as well. So now we'll just kind of walk through this a little bit more. So I'll save this, and I'll run it again. Leave my breakpoint there. I'll wait for this thing to start up. So it actually has started up. So I can go back up to the front end, and I can refresh it again. Refresh. Here we go. Number of users, and then how fast I want them to spawn. Just one user. This, as an open source website, I don't want to beat it too much. So I actually can step through and I can see the result text. I'm printing it out, so you can already see it actually come back as JSON. So, and then the status code was a 200, which is what you would expect if it has a successful run. And that is pretty much that. The only other thing that you might want to know is that you don't necessarily have to run the UI portion of it. I like to run the UI portion of it because it comes with a bunch of charts. It also has all the failures, and you can dump all the data from the run itself after it's run, because these charts are kind of nice to send people. But if you want to run it headless because it's part of CI/CD pipeline or something like that, then there are a bunch of additional arguments that you're going to need in order to do that. So the arguments are Locust, and we kind of did this earlier with -F, and that's the file that we're actually targeting. In this particular case, what did we call the file? We called the file my script, I think. Yeah, my script. My script.py, and then -u is the number of users that you input whenever you first started the test. Then you did a -r, which was the number, kind of the spawn rate. Then you do a -t for how long do you want the test to run. In this case, I'm specifying 10 seconds, and I'm specifying headless also. And if I do this, I will get a run for 10 seconds at one user at a spawn rate of 1. So if I specify more users, I get more data, and after 10 seconds, it's going to stop, and it stopped. So for headless, if you want to put a time on there, that's kind of nice, actually. You can stop it. With the UI one, you're going to have to stop it manually, actually pressing the stop button yourself. And that's pretty much how to get all this working together. Recommend you study up on some Python stuff. I'm still an amateur myself. And the Locust stuff actually has a website as well. You can go over to locust.io, and there is documentation up here that you can look at. Send the documentation link. And I've referred to to several things, especially some of the HTTP stuff. What variables do you actually need to feed in order to do something more complex? Like I needed to add a header, so you need to understand what you actually need to put in for a post versus a get, and how the headers are to show up. The IntelliSense is kind of showing you a little bit here that you got, but the documentation is extremely helpful for how to form those up and how to form headers, because I was doing a post statement with all of mine. And then you need to learn about variables and a bunch of other stuff, so you don't have to put like your JSON payloads in this actual file. I did it by actually creating another Python file and then referring to the file by name. So I did it by actually putting my variables in a separate file. So for example, I've added this file here called mydata.py, and I've added in a variable called data1 with a triple quote, meaning I could do multi-line and then put some JSON kind of here. Coming back here, I would do an import of my data. And once I've actually imported this data, I can refer to the strings by doing my data.data1. So now I have this entire payload. So if I was to do a post, for example, I could use that as the text of the post body to actually post something out to somewhere else. But it keeps this file from being cluttered up. Plus, I'm not doing what they call like a star import, which just imports everything from the class, because I'm referring to it by the file name that I imported, .data1. It won't, as they call it, pollute this particular class, because I'm referring to them by the exact name. And that's just one thing that I found useful about using another file like this. I'm still an amateur, like I stated before, so as far as like multiple files and keeping class tasks and stuff in there, I'm not to that level yet, but hopefully this is still useful and will at least get you off the ground and get you started with actually working with Locust. Thank you for watching.